There are wars you have never fought because the Lord has already won them in silence. There are arrows that never reached your dwelling because they were snapped in mid-flight by a hand you could not see. You rose this morning unaware of the counsel of darkness that had conspired against you in the night, plots that crumbled before they touched your doorstep. The Holy Spirit whispers, "You do not see it, but I am protecting you from battles you do not even know exist." The unseen is no less real than the visible. In the courts of eternity, strategies are overturned, enemies are scattered, and traps are shattered before your foot even nears them. You walk in peace not because the path is empty of danger, but because the keeper of your soul stands guard where your eyes cannot reach. The invisible shield of grace, there is a shield that has been raised over your life long before you knew you needed it. Defense not forged by human hands, nor stationed by earthly watchmen, but erected by the Eternal for the preservation of His beloved. The invisible shield of grace is not seen with the eyes of flesh, yet it has deflected more danger than you will ever be able to count in this life. We think of protection only when we survive an accident, recover from an illness, or escape a visible crisis. Yet what of the countless calamities that never came because the Lord barred their path? The enemy would have swallowed you whole if he had been given the chance, but heaven's decree said, "Thus far and no further." You may not have heard the roar of the adversary in the night, but the walls of God's keeping were high and unbreachable around you. You rose each morning without the faintest knowledge that arrows had been aimed, traps had been laid, snares had been hidden in your path, yet the shield stood between you and the shadow. In the realm you cannot see, there are forces that hunger for your ruin, spiritual powers that despise your worship, your faith, your calling, and yet they find themselves thwarted at every turn by the One who neither slumbers nor sleeps. Grace is not merely pardon for sin, it is also protection from destruction. This shield is not a passive ornament, but a living defense, quenching fiery darts before they ever reach the air around you, absorbing the blows that would crush you if they landed. There have been moments in your life when the conversation about you in the enemy's camp was fierce, yet heaven's voice thundered a single word, "No." That "no" became the shield that kept you breathing, believing, and standing here today. This protection is not earned by your strength, nor kept by your vigilance. It is given because you are His, and He has written your days before one of them came to be. Just as a mother bird spreads her wings over her young, hiding them from the sight of predators, so the Lord covers you in the shadow of His hand. You do not know how many times the car behind you almost lost control, how often a sickness almost took hold, how close you came to crossing paths with destruction. Yet each time the shield was already there. The world may see coincidence, but the child of God knows better. It is providence, deliberate and precise, that keeps the soul from being crushed. And here lies a humbling truth. You are not safe because danger is absent. You are safe because God is present. His shield does not vanish in the dark hours, nor grow thin under the pressure of the day. The invisible shield of grace is as strong in the valley as on the mountain-top, as unshakable in the storm as in the stillness. If your eyes could be opened for even 1 hour to see the battles He has fought, and won without your knowledge, you would fall to your knees in trembling gratitude, unable to speak for the weight of mercy. This is why trust becomes the lifeblood of the believer. We rest not because we see every threat neutralized, but because we know the shield stands in place even when the danger is unknown to us. The sheep does not analyze the skill of the wolf's teeth. It rests in the nearness of the shepherd. The pilgrim does not map every ambush along the way. He walks because the guardian leads on. You may think that your prayers are unanswered when you see no change in your circumstances, but perhaps the greatest answers are the deliverances you never knew you needed. One day in eternity, the Lord will roll back the curtain of time and show you the ledger of interventions. the storms calmed before they gathered, the wars won before they reached your gate, the hands of evil stilled before they touched your life. And on that day you will realize that your journey was never a game of chance, but a guarded path lined with the unyielding faithfulness of God. Until then, let this truth anchor you. Though your eyes cannot see the shield, your life is the evidence that it is there. You are here not merely because you have survived the visible trials, but because the invisible shield of grace has turned away an ocean of unseen ones. Every breath you take is a testimony that God's protection is not an occasional act but a constant covering. Let your heart, therefore, beat in thanksgiving, not only for the victories you can name, but for the thousands you never will. The battles beyond our sight, not all battles announce themselves with the clash of swords or the trumpet of war. Many are waged in the quiet corridors of the unseen realm, where the stakes are your destiny, and the victory is won before you even wake from your sleep. The Scriptures speak of a conflict not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual forces in the heavenly places, an invisible war that rages beyond the reach of human senses. You live in the middle of it every day, though your eyes may see only the ordinary patterns of life. These battles are not fought in the marketplaces you walk through or the streets you travel, but in the unseen courts where angels and adversaries contend. There are moments when the kingdom of darkness plots to cut off your hope, to cloud your mind, to tempt you into destruction. And yet the plan never takes root, because heaven's warriors have already intercepted the scheme. You may think your morning was uneventful, but somewhere in that unseen battlefield, forces of light stood their ground on your behalf, turning away the advance of the enemy before his hand could reach you. We often imagine that spiritual warfare is only the wrestling we feel in our spirit, the seasons when temptation burns hot or trials press in, but there is far more happening than the skirmishes we sense. Some of the most decisive victories in your life have been fought in silence, without your awareness, as the armies of heaven engaged the adversary long before you were aware of the threat. Just as a city sleeps peacefully while its walls are guarded by watchmen, so your life rests under the vigilance of the One who commands legions of angels to keep you in all your ways. The enemy does not waste his strength on minor intentions. His goal is always to steal, kill, and destroy. Yet again and again his path is blocked because your keeper stands between you and harm. The battles beyond your sight are often battles for your future. A discouragement that could have crippled your faith, an opportunity that would have ensnared your soul, a relationship that would have drawn you from the truth. Yet the Lord, in His perfect wisdom, closed doors, shifted paths, and rearranged circumstances, so the trap was dismantled before you could step into it. There is deep mercy in the things that never happened to you. You will never know how many accidents you didn't have, how many betrayals never reached you, how many words meant to wound you never found their way into your ears. And though your mind cannot trace every deliverance, your heart can learn to trust the One who fights for you when you cannot fight for yourself. These hidden battles are no less real than the visible ones. In fact, they are often more decisive, for they are the foundation on which your visible victories stand. If the enemy could win in the secret place, the visible world would soon follow. But the Lord surrounds you like the mountains around Jerusalem, immovable and steadfast, so that your foundation remains secure. Think of Daniel praying in Babylon, unaware of the angelic conflict that delayed his answer for 21 days, yet the answer came because the battle in the unseen was won. Or Elisha's servant, trembling at the sight of the Syrian army until the prophet prayed that his eyes would be opened to see the hills filled with chariots of fire. The truth is this: you are never alone and you are never unguarded. You walk through the visible world, but you are carried by the victories of the invisible one. Every temptation you resist, every burden you bear, every tear you cry is seen in the courts of heaven and met with the strength of the Almighty. The enemy may circle, but he cannot enter without permission, and the Lord is not careless with those he loves. If we could grasp this fully, we would fear less and worship more, for we would see that our lives are the product of 1,000 unseen rescues. And though you may feel small in this vast spiritual war, you are not insignificant. You are the object of heaven's protection, the reason for the angels' charge, the treasure for which Christ laid down his life. So walk boldly, not because you see every battle, but because you know the victor who commands them. The day will come when all will be revealed, when the veil will be lifted, and you will stand amazed at the countless times the enemy's hand was stopped before it touched you. Until then, live in quiet confidence that the battles beyond your sight are already under the rule of the one who cannot be defeated. You may never hear the clash of those swords, but the peace in your heart is the proof that they were fought and won on your behalf. The mercy of the unseen no. We often measure God's goodness by the yes. We receive answered prayers, open doors, opportunities embraced, blessings we can hold in our hands. But there is a mercy greater still, though it often hides itself from our understanding, the mercy of the unseen no. These are the refusals of heaven, the closed gates, the opportunities withheld, the relationships that never formed, the paths that suddenly vanished from before us, not as punishment, but as protection. We cry out for God to bless a certain plan, to fulfill a certain desire, to let us walk through a certain door, and when the answer is silence or delay, we feel forgotten. Yet in the councils of eternity, the Almighty has already weighed the outcome and said, "If I give you this, it will wound you. If I withhold it, it will save you." That is mercy. We are creatures bound by time, unable to see around the next bend of the road, while He sees the entire landscape of our lives from beginning to end. The no that breaks your heart today may be the very thing that preserves it tomorrow. Think of Israel in the wilderness begging to return to Egypt because they feared the giants of Canaan. Had God yielded to their request, they would have traded the promised land for the bondage of the past. Or recall Paul pleading 3 times for the thorn in his flesh to be removed, only to hear the divine answer, "My grace is sufficient for you." That was not a denial without love, it was a refusal wrapped in a greater gift. The unseen no is often an unspoken yes to something better, though it may not feel that way in the moment. The danger is that in our impatience we can mistake God's wisdom for neglect, as though His withholding is a sign that He has turned His face away. But the truth is the opposite. His refusals are evidence that His attention is fixed on you, that He will not let you step into a snare, that He is guarding your future with a care far greater than your own. There are prayers you prayed in tears that He answered by not answering, because what you asked for was smaller than what He intended to give, or because the timing you desired would have crushed the gift under its own weight. The mercy of the unseen no is that it does not always announce itself. Often we never learn what we were spared. You do not know the business deal that would have bankrupted you, the friendship that would have betrayed you, the journey that would have led to loss. You do not know how many times you reached for something that glittered like gold but was laced with poison, and His hand gently closed the door before you could touch it. And in that moment you may have been angry, confused, or heartbroken, but in heaven's record it was written as deliverance. The no is a form of protection every bit as real as a wall of fire or an army of angels, because it keeps you from stepping into a battle you were never meant to fight. We thank Him for the storms He calms, but how often do we thank Him for the storms He never lets form at all? The unseen no is the quiet work of a shepherd who steers his sheep away from the cliffs they cannot see. even when they strain against his leading. It is the father saying to the child, "You do not yet understand why this is dangerous, but I do." This kind of mercy requires trust, a trust that leans not on sight or on understanding, but on the unchanging character of the one who has never failed to keep his word. You may not rejoice over the no in the moment, but faith will teach you to bless it, because you know the hand that gives it is the same hand that carved your name into his palm. And there will come a day when the full picture is revealed, when every unanswered prayer will be traced back to a kindness greater than you dared hope for. You will see that some of the sweetest mercies in your life came dressed in disappointment, and that the refusals of heaven were among your greatest blessings. For now, walk in quiet confidence that the God who loves you enough to say yes, in his time also loves you enough to say no. In his wisdom, his no is not the closing of love's hand, it is the shaping of it, the proof that he is as much your protector as your provider. And if you could see the battles that his no has spared you from, you would fall to your knees and thank him with tears. Until that day, hold fast to this truth. Every no in your life, unseen or understood, has been filtered through the mercy of a God who would rather you be safe in his will than lost in your own. The calm in the absence of storms, we are quick to lift our voices in thanksgiving when the tempest has passed, when the waves have stilled and the sky is clear again. But how rarely do we praise for the storms that never reached our horizon. The calm in the absence of storms is a gift often overlooked, for it comes without the drama of danger or the relief of escape. It is the quiet mercy of a God who stills the wind before it rises, who dissolves the clouds before they gather, who commands the sea to sleep before it roars. Our hearts are trained to celebrate deliverance after the fact, but heaven is rich with deliverances we will never know this side of eternity, storms aborted before they were born, battles silenced before they were announced. You woke this morning to a day that seemed ordinary, yet somewhere beyond your sight a chain of events was interrupted, a hand of harm was stilled, a word of malice was swallowed. The calm you walked in was not the absence of danger. It was the presence of divine intervention so early and so precise that you never even sensed the threat. And because we do not see the danger, we often fail to see the grace. We forget that peace itself is a miracle and not merely the natural state of life. The truth is, we live in a world that is always storm-ready. Circumstances can shift without warning, health can fail in a heartbeat, economies can collapse overnight, relationships can fracture with a single word. The storms are always possible, but they are not always permitted. This is the hidden work of the Almighty. He is not only the God who calms the seas after they rage, but also the God who keeps the winds chained in their storehouses, who sends the rain back to its chamber, who tells the lightning where to stop. The calm in your life today is the evidence of 1,000 peace, be still, commands spoken before you even knew there was something to fear. Think of how many nights you have slept without incident, how many meals you have eaten without threat, how many journeys you have taken without disaster. Every one of those moments of safety was a mercy, but because calm feels natural, we mistake it for normal. We forget that calm is not the default condition of a fallen world. It is a divine intervention. Storms are the natural inheritance of broken creation, but peace is the supernatural gift of a God who guards his own. And yet the absence of storms can be a greater test of faith than their presence, for in the storm we run to him out of desperation, but in the calm we are tempted to drift into self-reliance. The danger is that we can take his guarding hand for granted, thinking the path is smooth because it simply is, not because he has made it so. This is why we must discipline our hearts to thank him, not only when we see the storm end, but when we see no storm at all. For the calm you enjoy today is not luck, not fate, not coincidence. It is a wall of divine defense built before the enemy could lay his foundation. We often say, "God kept me in the storm," but how often do we say, "God kept the storm from me"? There is a vast difference between surviving the flood and being spared from it altogether, and the latter is perhaps the greater mercy, for it saves us not only from loss, but from the wounds that loss leaves behind. The calm in the absence of storms is God's way of saying, "I will bear the weight of this battle, so you never have to know it existed." In that way, he becomes not just the rescuer, but the preventer, not just the redeemer, but the preserver. And here is the mystery. We may never know the full list of storms we were spared from until the day he reveals all. On that day he will show you the morning when an accident was scheduled but rerouted, the conversation that was meant to harm you but dissolved before it began, the sickness that was poised to enter your body but was stopped at the threshold. And you will realize that your life was not carried forward by your own stability, but by his constant, active protection. Until that day, let us walk in humility, knowing that our peace is purchased for us by a power far beyond our own. Let us praise in the quiet seasons as fervently as in the seasons of rescue. Let us not measure God's goodness only by the storms we survive, but by the countless storms we never face. For the calm in the absence of storms is not emptiness. It is the fullness of his care, the silent victory of a shepherd who fights battles before his sheep even sense the danger. And when you learn to see that calm for what it is, you will find reason to worship in every still moment, for every still moment is proof that he is still on the throne, still guarding, still speaking peace into the places you do not see. Trusting the keeper of our soul, there is a rest that only comes when you believe, truly believe, that your life is held in the hands of one who cannot fail. Trusting the keeper of our soul is not a casual decision, nor is it a shallow comfort for fragile days. It is the anchor in every season, the fortress in every battle, the lighthouse in every night of uncertainty. We speak of trust as though it is easy, but trust is forged in the furnace of not knowing. It is the steady choice to lean the full weight of your life on the one whose ways are higher than your own, whose thoughts are deeper, whose vision stretches beyond every horizon you can see. The keeper of your soul is not merely a guardian of your body or your circumstances. He is the protector of your inner life, your faith, your hope, your eternal future. Others may shield you from physical harm for a time, but only he can keep you from the ruin of your spirit. Trust is not born when life makes sense. It is born when you stand at the edge of understanding and still say, "Yet I will trust you." This trust rests in the certainty that no event can enter your life without passing through his sovereign will. The accidents, the delays, the changes you never planned, none of these are outside the jurisdiction of his care. To trust the keeper of your soul is to believe that he does not simply react to danger, but is always ahead of it, shaping your path to lead you safely home. When you cannot see the road, you trust his feet to know the way. When you cannot hear his voice, you trust his heart to still be speaking over you. This trust grows deeper when you remember the countless times he has already proven himself faithful. Think of the nights he kept you from despair when all seemed lost, the days when strength came from nowhere, the seasons when hope rose again after being buried. These are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of the keeper on your life. And his keeping is not fragile. It does not waver with the tide of your emotions or falter when your own faith feels weak. The keeper holds you even when you do not feel held. The psalmist declares that he neither slumbers nor sleeps, meaning there is not a single second when his watch over you is broken. Kings have guards who must change shifts. Soldiers grow weary on the wall. Even the most devoted friend cannot stand beside you every hour. But the keeper of your soul does not grow tired, does not lose focus, does not forget. His keeping is as constant at midnight as at noon, as steady in the valley as on the mountain top. and because he is unshakable, you can rest, even when the world around you trembles. Trusting him means you stop measuring your safety by the absence of trouble and start measuring it by the presence of his hand. For the truth is, storms will still come, trials will still test, valleys will still shadow your path, but none of these can reach you without permission, and none of them can steal from you what he has secured. Trust turns fear into faith, not by removing uncertainty, but by placing it into the hands of the one who governs all things. To trust the keeper is also to surrender control, not because you are careless, but because you know he is careful. You release the need to chart every turn, to predict every outcome, because you know the shepherd's eyes see what yours cannot. And here is the mystery: when you surrender to his keeping, you discover a peace that does not depend on knowing the future. You begin to live not in reaction to fear, but in response to love. For the keeper of your soul does not guard you reluctantly. He guards you with delight, with devotion, with the fierce determination of one who has purchased you at the highest cost. His keeping was sealed at the cross, when the price for your redemption was paid in full. If he would not withhold his own life to save yours, will he now withhold his protection? Never. Every day you rise is another day his promise is proven. I am with you always. And one day, when the final mile is walked and your journey's end comes into view, you will see that his keeping was not only for this life, but for the life to come. He has kept you from dangers seen and unseen, from battles known and unknown, from storms endured and storms avoided, all to bring you safely into his eternal presence. In that moment, every question will fade, every fear will vanish, every tear will be wiped away, and you will know beyond all doubt that the keeper of your soul was worthy of every ounce of trust you ever placed in him. Until that day, let your heart be steadfast. When the path is dark, trust his light. When the road is lonely, trust his presence. When the journey is uncertain, trust his promise. For you are not your own defender. You are the beloved of the keeper, and his hands are the safest place you will ever be.